for that.
Right.
Okay.
I think I'll be talking to you again in the morning. On something else. Thank you.
Bronwyn Hayward, you've got 2 submissions, one personal and one on the LTP and one on climate change strategy.
Kia ora koutou. Thank you very much. I'm Bronwyn Hayward from University of Canterbury. This is a personal submission. I chair the International Panel for Climate Change's Cities and Infrastructure, so I'm really with you in spirit. So I've just merged both my comments on the city plan and on climate. There's a couple of things I'd just like to highlight. One is that I'd like to make an offer for the University of Canterbury and my colleagues at Lincoln to provide a panel or support for the council as a whole. We're doing it for a lot of cities around the world, and it seems crazy that we're not for ourselves. And I can't speak for the others, but I don't think they'd charge for it. So I know we do things particularly connected to individual sectors like the coastal sector, but it's an overall panel of bringing together the scientists and the climate to just give you some expert advice on the side for the city that we love and that we understand the problems and the challenges you're facing. The other thing is that I am really disappointed that the plan and the both the long-term plan and the climate plan isn't robust. We haven't yet integrated our measurements. We can do a lot better than this. It's just a quick throw together of bullet points, to be honest. And one of the best examples that I've seen is led by Massey's environmental health team. Their social vulnerability project is great. So it helps you measure as a city how many people are exposed to climate change, where they live, right down to the mesh block, in terms of their health, their housing, their income. It lets you think about their susceptibility and measure that, and it lets you understand the resilience in terms of their social connections, their languages, their access to food, their income. And you can go right down to the street level, and they've done a really lovely example of it with Pororua, and I would really encourage us to look at that because that we know from the earthquake experience that all these things add together. At the moment, we're good at looking at coastal impacts or something, but actually we don't know whether we're making a difference overall as a city. So just being able to know where is our biggest vulnerabilities and then measure how we're getting on across time would be great. Just 2 other things I'd like to put that are surprising and not necessarily added in. One is a big push for keeping the libraries open in the evenings. I've added into this study the work that we've done around children and young people. We're just finishing a comparative study following children here in Christchurch and 7 other world cities. We are really on a knife edge. I know you all know this, but our mental health and our well-being in this city is very fragile. It is across the country, but it's exceptionally tense here. We have already invested in this infrastructure for the libraries. Don't waste that investment by scrimping on a couple of hours later time, because what we know from the earthquakes when we closed the libraries and used them as public administration centres is that the knock-on effect for the well-being of the community was really large. So you're buying a fight you don't need to buy, but you're also undermining community well-being in ways that are really hard to measure. So use the asset that we've invested in. Use those spaces for evening meetings, for connecting with others. And the other 2, just quickly, Terrace Airport, don't buy this fight. I know that Terrace Airport will argue that they are a hydrogen, good source for the future of a kind of a way in which we could get a longer run, a better place to land. You don't want to waste your social and political capital fighting a losing battle. That kind of air travel and lengthening an airport in Terrace is a losing battle. Put your energy and your time into things that will make a difference for a flourishing city, and that is not Terrace. Nationally, it will undo a lot of our advances as well. So there's lots of reasons why I think that's a political nightmare, and I wouldn't touch it personally, but I also think it has big climate consequences we haven't counted. And my last plea, as I look at the outcomes for the Welsh voting, where for the first time local government has allowed 16-year-olds to vote, is that we lead the country, as we did when we allowed enabled women to vote, that we think seriously as a council about 16-year-olds voting. Two really strong things have happened in Wales. It hasn't been a shift to the left, it's been a stronger turnout, and it's easier for communities to be reached when you can go and just talk to schools in the evenings and their parents and whānau. There's all sorts of good things that happen by making the vote possible at 16. So I didn't put that in there, but just looking at the Welsh results last night, I thought, yeah, but don't do this austerity light stuff, especially around things like the libraries. It's not the main game. And let's start measuring what we want to change, especially on climate.
Thank you very much. Incredibly helpful submission. James Daniels and then Jake.
Kia ora, Bronwyn. Complete disclosure, I follow you on Twitter, and I'm interested in your climate change or your climate issues. What do you say to anyone who says that airports don't create the demand, they cater for it?
Airports do create the demand because, interestingly, the biggest impact for most of the carbon for airports is going to be in the infrastructure build. So it's in the buildings, it's in the service centres. There's actually no money in the actual air travel. Let's hold for all the climate issues for a second. Where you recoup your costs is in the design and the build of the actual facility. All the service centres that you offer around it, everything from the hotels to the supermarkets to the distribution centres, those are all really high carbon. And then we look at the effect for our climate. So we need to be thinking a lot smarter about the kind of tourism that we're going to have in a post-COVID world. We are in a really vulnerable state in New Zealand, and this is taking us backwards. We can and should be pitching smarter.
Jake? No? Okay, look, thank you very much, Bronwyn.
Thank you. Thanks very much for
very
all
helpful.
your work. It's one of the few functioning councils at the moment, so we're grateful.